Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled to guide you through a word today that is honestly kind of a linguistic puzzle. We use vocabulary every single day, obviously, but sometimes an everyday, ordinary word is actually hiding a truly fascinating secret. So let's start uncovering it. Think about your own experiences for just a second. Have you ever been, say, proofreading an email or reading a book, and your eyes just glide right past a glaring typo? Like, your brain doesn't even register it's there. Or, on the completely opposite end of the spectrum, have you ever stood on the edge of a high cliff and just taken in this massive, sweeping view of a valley all at once? It feels like two totally opposite visual experiences, right? I mean, on one hand, you're completely missing a tiny, crucial detail. But on the other hand, you are seeing absolutely everything in this grand panorama. Well, what if I told you the exact same word describes both of these experiences? Section 1. Meet the word. Let's officially introduce the subject of our little investigation today. Today's word is overlook. Let's actually lock in the pronunciation right out of the gate here. Say it with me. Overlook. 3 syllables, and you'll notice that last part rhymes perfectly with book. Overlook. Now, this is a super versatile word. It does double duty, functioning perfectly as both a verb and a noun, depending on how we, decide to use it. Moving on to Section 2, an archipelago of meanings. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that I want you to think of the word overlook as an archipelago, kind of like a chain of separate, distinct islands of meaning, rather than just one solid landmass. We've actually got 4 distinct islands here. Number 1, failing to notice or consider something. Number 2, choosing to forgive. Number 3, having a view over a physical space. And number 4, a high place with a good view, which is our noun form. Now, while all of these are completely valid, the most useful and common verb sense is actually that first one, the very concrete act of failing to notice. But looking at this whole list, you kind of have to ask, how did one single word get so fractured into these totally different definitions? Well, that brings us to Section 3, Origins from Old English. To figure out how this happened, we really need to put on our detective hats and dig into the past a little bit. Let's take the prefix over. Back in Old English, this simply meant above or on top. Now I want you to use some spatial visualization with me here. Literally imagine yourself physically looking over something from above. If you look over a document on your desk, your eyes might literally glide above the text, right? Skimming the surface and skipping right past the tiny details. But if you stand on a mountain and look over the landscape, your elevated position allows you to survey the entire magnificent scene. It actually makes perfect, logical, spatial sense. And it explains exactly why this single word pulls our brains in 2 completely opposite directions. Section 4, Context and Contradictions. So if the word pulls in opposite directions, how do we actually know which way to go? Let's look at the evidence. Let's analyze our first piece of evidence in context. He overlooked the fact that some guests were vegetarian. So the crucial point is that right here, overlook acts as a verb, meaning to miss or fail to consider something important. It's that very first island in our archipelago. And let's be totally honest, if you're hosting a dinner party and you do this, you are going to have some very hungry, very unhappy guests on your hands. It's just a pure oversight. But watch how the tone and meaning shift entirely with this next scenario. I'll overlook the mistake this time, but please be careful. Okay. So we've just hopped to a totally different island on our archipelago. Here, the person speaking didn't miss the mistake at all. They saw it very clearly, but they're consciously choosing to forgive it or just let it slide. It's an active choice of grace rather than, an accident of blindness. And then we arrive at this entirely different experience. Let's stop at the overlook and see the falls. Notice how overlook has completely transformed here. It went from an action you take into a literal destination you visit. And this brilliantly illustrates the noun form of the word. We aren't doing the looking anymore. We're standing on the physical high place that provides that spectacular view. Let's put these extremes side by side, because honestly, this is where the magic of language really happens. Overlooking a problem means you completely missed it, but overlooking a valley means you see absolutely all of it. It's quite the contradiction, isn't it? The ultimate takeaway here is that the only way your brain knows whether you are missing a tiny detail or taking in a massive vista is through the surrounding context. The environment the word lives in is what actually gives it its specific power. Now, before we wrap up, we have a really critical warning straight from our source material to lock into your memory. This is regarding overlook versus oversee, because overlook so often means missing something. You never, ever want to confuse it with oversee, which means to actively supervise or manage. Think about it. If you tell your boss you overlooked a project, you're basically admitting you completely neglected it. No way you want to say that. But if you say you oversaw it, you're highlighting your leadership and probably asking for a promotion. It's the exact same prefix, but with literally totally different career results. So definitely don't mix those up. And this brings us to our final challenge for the day. I want you to actively test your new mastery of this word. Can you use overlook 2 ways right now, either in your own head or just say it out loud? Try to craft a sentence where it means to miss something, and then immediately craft another sentence where it means to have a view. It's a really fantastic way to solidify what we've covered today. Because language isn't just about passively memorizing definitions from a screen, right? It's about understanding the spatial and historical geometry behind the words we use every single day. So it leaves me wondering, what other perfectly common words are hiding deep, contradictory secrets just waiting for you to overlook, or rather, to finally notice? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time.